two of our holes did encounter good mineralization, right? So, the geologists that were logging the core identified that there's something there. The reason this has never been drilled before is not because nobody's not wanted to, it's because it actually took our property vendors, it took them 9 years to put together the claim package.
You need to be mindful of what type of investors you're looking for, because no one's going to bet their house on this. It's the risks are, as you say, quite high, right? So who are you looking for? What would you say investors should be like if they're investing in something like this? Hello and welcome to Crux Investor. We spoke earlier today to Simon Dyakowski. He's the CEO of GSP Resources. They're a junior miner in BC. I was particularly taken by how they have structured their business. It's a fairly early stage company. We talk about a number of topics. Look at those in the description below. Click on the relevant timestamp. That'll take you to that part of the video. And if I could ask that you click the button in the corner of the screen to subscribe to our YouTube channel. And of course, if you want to see more videos like this, click the notification bell. Let's hear what Simon had to say. Hey Simon, how are you?
Doing well, thanks. How are you?
Not bad, not bad. So good to talk to you. You've kind of got a brand new project here that we're going to hear about. So why don't you kick off, give us a 1 minute summary. We'll pick it up from there. Sure.
So GSP Resource Corp, it's a brand new listed TSX venture mineral exploration issuer. So we listed late last year in December of 2018. The company was actually incorporated in February of 2018. So it's a fairly new project put together by some partners here in Vancouver. And the whole idea of it is we acquired a very prospective, never been drilled before, large land package in Southwestern British Columbia in a district that's well known for mining of platinum and palladium alluvially out of the rivers. The Tulameen River and the Similkameen River specifically, they've had over 20,000 ounces of mining recorded in them. We had an opportunity to acquire a 3,000 hectare package of claims last year on an attractive option basis, and we decided to launch a new mining issuer off the back of that. And the reason we're talking today is that we've recently commenced and completed an initial drill program. So we've punched in 7 holes, 1,200 meters, and we're eager to get results and to see if some of the spectacular numbers we found on surface bear out throughout the rock.
Okay, so let's start with trying to understand what the plan is here. What is this place? So if people looking at this new, what are you asking them to buy into? Because in terms of the asset, you don't know much. You've done a little bit of drilling, right? So what's the play here?
Sure. Yeah. So really the play from a retail investor's perspective or a high net worth individual would be to buy into a well-structured mining vehicle. So, I've been around the industry for a long time, and I found, at least in my experiences, that a lot of deals, the story's good, but you don't have a chance to make money because there's a pretty extreme dilution by the time any meaningful work is done. So, we at GSP, we've made a very concerted effort to keep the share count low. We've kept it, to this point, we have 11.7 million shares out, just shy of 15 million fully diluted. Trading at a market cap of $3 to $4 million over the last few weeks. So it's a micro cap opportunity. But just to touch a bit more on the structure, I mean, anybody can have a low share count, but what we did was we've made sure everybody's interests are aligned. So we have an escrow provision for not just the people that are forced into the escrow, like directors and officers, but in fact, all of our private investors that came in at even the later rounds of private financing voluntarily agreed to a 36-month release schedule. So investors that come in at this point, they can rest assured that there's not going to be selling pressure coming at them, as they're trying to get a position, and they've got a fair shake at participating in any upside if we do pull some numbers on a new discovery. Okay,
so let's look at that, because that's interesting to me. This is not a Vancouver, Toronto promote play. This is, you think you've got something and you're backing yourselves to deliver. And if it doesn't work out, you're not going to make anything out of this.
Yeah, exactly. And just to back up a little bit, so I put the deal together with some of my associates, people that I've been working with for the last number of years. So I'm the controlling shareholder. There, every share I own is fully disclosed. There's no group in the background per se who's positioned. I'm not hired by them to run the company. This is really, a group of individuals that have are a little bit disillusioned with some of the deals in town and how they're run. Obviously, look, there's a place for all sorts of different levels of risk in junior mining and exploration. And, albeit ours is very early stage and extremely risky, we want to, control whatever risks we can, and capital structure being a huge, a huge risk for anybody who's buying into one of these plays.
Okay, so let's carry on. Let's carry on that. You're not paying yourselves. You're taking remuneration in shares, which you're paying for, or you're allocating yourself?
No, so I paid for my shares. Right. So I put it, I take a small salary. I take, until we have something meaningful, I take where I know I take $3,000 a month, right? So it's, this isn't, it's not a really a moneymaker for me, but, no, yeah, I paid for my shares. There was no remuneration for getting the position. It's really an investment on my part and on my partner's parts.
Right.
And until we have something very meaningful to talk about, and until we've made money for a number of investors, I think that's the way we'll we'll continue to run the business here.
So how much money's been put in? How much cash has actually been put in?
Well, we burn so when we're not working. So obviously when we're drilling, there's a cost associated with that, which we can touch on later. But the corporate G&A is, including all the costs of running the company, it's 15,000 Canadian per month. So. Right. That's about as low as you can get really for running an active company.
Right. Okay. And how do you pay for the drill season when I know you've just done some drilling. How did you pay for that? Whose money was it?
Yeah. So we raised money in the public market, a couple of very small raises. So we raised flow through in British Columbia. There's a tax incentive. If you're a BC resident and your project is in BC, there's a tax credit that you can obtain by investing into an exploration project, and the rules around that are actually they're good. They're very strict. They're the CRA, the tax authority here in Canada, does a very good job of making sure that any money you raise and flow through gets spent basically on drilling, grassroots exploration, some development work. So you can't cover off expenses from that.
So what was that number?
And so. That was we did 250,000 on the IPO, and then we topped it up with 170,000 just before we started our drill program a couple of months ago. So, right. Call it $500,000 of flow through over the last year.
Okay, interesting. So, maybe that leads us nicely on. So let's talk about how you're going to spend that money and what it's going to get you, because it's not a lot of money. Right. Yeah. I know you're early stage, but still, you spend it wisely, and you're telling me you are. But talk to me about that.
Yeah. So our cost of drilling is around $200 Canadian all in per meter, off of a relatively small program. So that cost will come down if we expand the program next year. But that's actually what we spent it on. So we did quite a bit of grassroots work in 2018 to get the property ready to see if we wanted to even drill it. So we spent $100,000 on a airborne survey on kind of a prospective part of the property in the main zone is what we call it. And then we spent about $250,000 on a full soil geochemical survey, rock chip sampling mapping program that helped us hone in on specific drill targets that we executed on this fall. And then it was around $250,000 to drill the 12 holes.
Right.
We initially were going to do just 900 meters over 5 holes, but we liked what we saw as we were drilling, and we actually expanded that to 7 and 1,200 meters, and all unique targets, I might add. So really, 7 good shots of finding something unique.
So do you know what you're drilling for? What are you looking for?
Yeah. So we're looking for, it's a very interesting part of the country here. It's actually one of the few areas that's recognized by the USGS as a basin that could potentially host platinum group metals. Mm-hmm. So the primary metal we're looking for is copper, but there is a potential for nickel. So we're right at the contact of an intrusive diorite and an ultramafic formation, and it's one of the only ultramafic formations that comes to surface in BC. So the theory is that where those two rocks meet, there could be layered massive or semi-massive sulphides, which could host platinum group metals. So, platinum, palladium, gold, copper, nickel is the target right now.
Yeah, I guess for investors, if you're naming a whole bunch of metals there, which it kind of gets confusing. You want to be known for something, so you're after copper. There's potential for nickel too, but what do you want to be focused on?
Well, I mean, what we want to be focused on is it's a good question.
Apart from making money, really, right?
Yeah, making money. I mean, on grassroots exploration, I think discovery, it's not like we're going into a property where we're following up on somebody else's work, where maybe 30 or 50 years ago there was a drill hole that went in and got a nominal intersection of low grade gold, and we're a lot of other stories will go in and kind of retest existing projects, existing targets. So we're not doing that. So how our investors make money is there is no expectation for anything on this ground, really. I mean, we do have some high grade results at surface, but it's never been tested with a drill hole. So, I think if we get, an intersection of low grade copper with a precious metals kick, that would be a way for our investors to make money. There's a lot of eyeballs on the story now. And I think that, again, any kind of copper with a kicker of precious metals would be well received. And I might add that we're right in the vicinity of a very large copper mine. So, maybe just to touch on where we're located. So we're about a 3.5-hour drive outside of Vancouver, right in the heart of southwestern BC. So 25 kilometers to the southeast of us is Copper Mountain. So that's a prolific copper mine that's been in operation on and off over the past several decades here in British Columbia. It's located outside of the town of Princeton, and they're mining a grade right now of about I think it's 0.35 or very low grade copper, 0.3 or 0.35% copper with a low grade precious metals kick in the form of low grade gold. So, I think if we beat any of their grades on a discovery, meet or beat, I think that would create some interest in doing further work on the project and an equity valuation re-rating as well. And just to touch on that, there's a project 50 kilometers to the north of us called Shovel Nose. That's been it's a discovery made by West Haven Ventures last year. So very similar to us, they were a micro cap company, had been working on it for a few years, but hadn't had, I think, the success they were looking for through the drill bit until I think it was August of 2018, and they hit some I think it was a 17-meter intersection of some high grade gold, and they re-rated to a valuation of 100 million Canadian market cap in very short order. So I think for our investors, that's a good thing to remember, is that, within a very close proximity to us, there has been a validation of our investment thesis, really, on the back of good results. But yeah, to answer your question, copper with the precious metals kick would be what we'd be hoping for. But I do mention the other metals because, our soil surveys, the geologic theory, is amenable to nickel or copper, right? So you'd find the nickel more in the diorite, and the copper would be more in the ultramafic rock, and we're drilling at the contact. So
right,
it's hopefully that answers it.
Yeah, well, answer some of it, but I think what I'm hearing though is you are not quite sure. You know what you want, but you're not quite sure what you're going to get because it's early stages, and investors need to be mindful of that. You need to be mindful of what type of investors you're looking for, because no one's going to bet their house on this. It's the risks.
We're
high,
not.
Right? So who are you looking
Absolutely.
for? What would you say investors should be like if they're investing in something like this?
Yeah, I mean, that's a very good point. We're obviously not looking for anybody to risk a great amount of money on this. It's a speculative drill shot. But, we're looking for investors that have participated in these discovery stories in the past, that want to be sure that if there is a discovery that, that the share price responds accordingly. And that's something that needs to be reinforced, in that, a lot of companies do produce good results, but they don't have the ability to get the results in front of investors. So, people that have bet on the risk capital that they put in to support these projects, they're not rewarded when, the geological theories or what they would like to see is validated. So, I would stress to investors that the group that I work with here, we have a very strong focus on on, obviously the technical aspect of getting good properties, of, working with good geologists, good teams on the technical side to get the work done. But we also have, a focus, not an over focus, but a focus on making sure that, we're working on projects that investors might be interested to see in the context of the market. So,
right. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think that's honest of you, because I think, for you guys, this is not a lot of money. If it doesn't work out, it's not going to make or break you. But you've structured that. What interests me is that you've structured this in a way where you're not sucking money out of the company, raising money and sucking money out of the company. It's 36-month hold is really good. I like that component to it. But at the same time, investors need to be mindful that they need the same mentality as you. This is money that they can afford to lose if it doesn't work out, but if it does, there's great cheap optionality for them. Okay, so to that point is you're working out what you're going to get. So can we talk about some of the team, the technical team? Now I recognize the surname of the geologist here. Tell us what's going on there.
So I work with my father. My father's been in the business for close to 40 years. He's an exploration geologist. He spent the bulk of his career down in South America, in Argentina. So he was quite active there in the 90s. And he's got a somewhat of a discovery to his credit, a big silver epithermal project down in Argentina called the Pingüino, which he worked on, acquired and developed in the 90s and through the 2000s. He's put together a number of junior exploration vehicles in Vancouver, so it was a natural fit to work with him. So he advises, as the chairman, and kind of oversees from a high level the exploration activities and helps us select the projects.
Well, tell us, what does that mean? He looks at it from a high level. Is he involved, or is he dip in and out? What's happening there?
No, he's very much involved. However, on the ground drilling, he's not as involved. So we do have consultants that we rely upon to run the actual the work on the ground.
Right.
But yeah, he was up there spotting drill holes with us, and we have a gentleman out of Vancouver here who runs the actual exploration work on the ground. So there's a technical team, and and the beauty of our team is that we've set it up in a way that you'll notice there's not a lot of names on there. It's mostly legal and finance and deal guys. However, that's intentional, right? I mean, if there is good success on this project, there's a spot for another director to come on, some more technical expertise to come on in a more formal role. But again, as you mentioned, and as one of our goals, we're trying to keep the operating structure as lean as we can. And I want to stress that doesn't come at the expense of solid technical decision-making ability, but you might just not see it reflected formally at this point. It's kind of sized for the opportunity, if you will.
Okay, so what is your father's experienced guy, right? Like you mentioned, quite a big discovery there. What is he seeing here as the potential? It's really early. I mean, what does he know? What information has he got to allow him to say, this is worth spending some time on, and letting you, his son, go and spend time and effort and money on?
Yeah, so what he's seeing is that, firstly, the story of the property makes sense. It's never been drilled before. So a lot of people might ask, well, why hasn't it been drilled before? Because obviously, the vast majority of the rock in the world has never been drilled for good reason. There's likely nothing there. The reason this has never been drilled before is not because nobody's not wanted to. It's because it actually took our property vendors, it took them 9 years to put together the claim package. So this is key to the story. We work with some local partners, outside of Princeton who know this area like the back of their hand. And as I mentioned earlier, there's been prolific alluvial mining of platinum group metals and gold out of the local rivers. As such, and this is at the turn of the last century, right? The stats on the 20,000 ounces, I think they end in the 20s, right? It's like 1906 to 1920, something like that. So there's been a lot of prospectors that have had postage stamp sized claim blocks in the area looking for the lode source of the placer. So, it's been very difficult for any large company with the means to drill to actually collect enough claims to make it worthwhile. So, we partnered with this group that, that we bought the project from, or the earning in from, because they had spent the time 9 years to put it together and to, to find a group to work on it. So that's one thing. That's why it hasn't been drilled. Also, the property is surrounded by two defined mineral resources. There's two magnetite deposits on the eastern and western flank of our claims. And this is important because a large mining company in Vancouver, Imperial Metals, which has been around for decades, has a feasibility study published on these two resources. And in the 1960s, when there was a big building boom in Japan and a big a need for investment in iron ore, they were contemplating producing iron ore from the Tulameen, which is where we're located, and shipping it. So they had a large area of the claims that we're on staked over the last few years. So again, another reason why nobody's gone in and drilled where we're looking. A third reason is road access. There was no road access to our property until about 10 years ago. So it was just a goat trail. And adjacent to us, directly on the east, there's a coal mine called the Basin Coal Mine that was actually operated by a British company, a private British company, about 8 or 9 years ago. It went into production, high quality thermal coal. And their whole business was built around trucking thermal coal to the railhead about 100 kilometers away. So, with that, they spent millions of dollars putting in a very high quality gravel road, which just happened to cut through what is now our claim block and exposed bedrock all the way through. So it was almost like millions of dollars of free trenching that our property vendors got to collect data from, that they didn't have to spend money on, and as such, we didn't have to spend any money on. So if investors look at our corporate presentation, they'll see that I've highlighted some of the some of the grades of copper, palladium, and gold that have been found at surface, and those are good numbers. And of course, they don't mean anything unless they're drilled. But a lot of companies have to actually spend hundreds of thousands of dollars before they get to the bedrock, and we were able to get that for free by virtue of somebody else's infrastructure. So I think those three things are key. The amount of time it took to put together the claims, why the claim blocks were so small, which was individual prospectors looking for the load source on their own, and, a large operator working on a different project in the area in a different era. And then, of course, the road building. So, it's a good story as to how it came together. And then I'll also note that the creek, so the two areas we've been drilling on flank, it's called the Olivine Creek, and the Olivine Creek is, one of the primary sources of the platinum group placers that have been mined. So just looking at it from geological point of view, that the rock likely had to come from somewhere upstream of those creeks, which we cover the headwaters of that creek.
Right. That's some nice background information. It kind of maybe sets the scene a little bit for why you like this area and this particular project. Can we just talk about the strategy, the business plan for moving this forward? So you've done two raises, right? They're small raises. They allow you to take these baby steps forward to understand more what it is that you've got under the ground. But like Samson, you do a lot more drilling. There's no kind of certainty around this. This is pure speculation, at its finest.
Yeah.
So how are you going to go about doing these raises going forward? You're going to continue doing these small raises each time, is that right? And where's the money come from? Is this friends and family still, or is it open market?
No, so it's not necessarily going to be small. Like, again, I don't want to set expectations for large or small going forward, but we did announce publicly that two of our holes did encounter good mineralization, right? So, the geologists that were logging the core identified that there's something there that could host the metals that we're looking for. So that said, if we're lucky and it does host copper and potentially some precious metals, the next phase of drilling would be, it would be a modest increase. So I think it would be from an investor's point of view, it would be what you'd want to see. So it would be, we've just kind of loosely sketched out next year. And again, it all depends on the results, and it can be scaled up or down. But if we, DDH3, which was a 200-meter hole that seemed to be, mineralized the whole way up and down, if that bears any kind of copper or precious metals, then we could put around 2,500 meters around that to try to define and get a handle on what we're seeing. And that would cost us, again, at $200 a meter, it'd cost us $500,000. But you add on the cost of running the company, and we would do more work around the property on other targets that we have. It's a large project, so maybe $1 million to $2 million would get us a lot of work and a lot of news flow. But that said, we're not going to raise it at 10 cents or 15 cents. So if the market doesn't like what they see in the results, the next year's work will be sized appropriately to not result in excessive dilution, and to kind of, that would kill our business thesis here. So that to answer your question, it would be at least, I think, 2,500 meters, which would cost us, hard dollars in the ground would be $500,000. But I think it would provide justification to raise, probably 7-figure raise. And where would there be support for that? It hasn't been completely friends and family to this date. It's, I've got a good relationship with a number of brokers here in Vancouver and Toronto. So our IPO was underwritten by Canaccord, and there's been participation by brokers at Haywood, Canaccord, PI Financial. So I think there'd be good appetite for, obviously much too early stage for an institutional investor in that sense. But I think we would attract the attention of high net worth in the Canadian market, at least. Yeah.
And how much have management and directors put in?
So we own 37% of the issued and outstanding.
Right.
On a dollar basis, I'd have to look that up, but we put in a lot. We put in, a couple $100,000, let's say, amongst the group. There's we have some supporters here in Vancouver that have written big checks as well. So, it's not just 5 and 10 grand here and there from everybody, right? But no, we own 40% of it. Call it fully diluted, maybe 37% on a basic basis.
Right. Okay.
And we'll continue to support it. I mean, if we're disappointed by the results here, I just want to highlight, oftentimes with these drill shots, what you see is, the company goes all in, promotes heavily, generates a lot of interest, and then the results are disappointing and the stock goes to 1 to 5 cents and it's consolidated and it's a total loss. And I really want to stress to anybody that invests is that, again, I don't have a crystal ball. I don't know if it's going to go to zero or not. Obviously, I hope not, but it's designed in a way that theoretically it shouldn't, because we've left enough money in the company to run it for 2 years. So there's no need to do a dilutive financing at all if we don't want to keep working. And the structure and liquidity are attractive enough that, other opportunities have been presented to me, especially over the last few weeks as the share prices or the shares have actually been trading with, some good liquidity. There's going to be opportunities to add other projects to the portfolio if we so choose. And I think that's really important because, anybody can put a deal together and tell you that they can get a project in, but, you have to find a willing seller. And, if I had a good project and I was selling it for shares, I would be very hesitant to put it into a vehicle that has an illiquid structure or a diluted structure. And so, we really de-risked our capital structure by setting it up in a way that, that's not a consideration next year or probably the year after. So there's really there's a 2-3 year runway that somebody speculating now could still make money on their shares.
Right.
If we come up with absolutely nothing on this drill program.
Okay. So tell me a little bit more about you. So you've obviously got other things going on. This isn't paying the bills, right? $3,000 isn't really making a dent.
Yeah, it's not. I mean, I'm a consultant to a couple of companies. Right. I work with a group of companies in Vancouver. I do spend a good deal of my time on this project, and with some success, it should become more of a full-time job. But I highlight it should not be. I'm a relatively young guy. I've got 20 hours a day to work if I want. So it's I do spend a lot of time on this, and I work with a number of other companies. Right? I'm very passionate about junior mining, and I think there's a way it should be done right here. And
are you the guy to run this company when if something comes up? You are. Okay.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think, just given my family history in in mining. I mean, actually, of a European background, but my family came to Vancouver specifically to participate in the junior mining industry in the 1960s. So, while I don't have a degree in geology, I've been around it my whole life. I think I know enough people to help. I'm by no means, I don't want to purport myself to be a technical expert, but, there's a wealth of resources that our team draws upon here in Vancouver. And, again, we're in a really privileged position to be able to do work like this on a very modest budget, and obviously with, split duties amongst other companies. But again, I really don't see that as a risk to investors to have a distracted management team or anything like that. That's not the case. It's, they're all complementary companies that we manage here out of our office.
So what's the point? So you're sitting there quite high up, I can see glass walls, all very nice. So what's the point at which you pull the trigger and say, I will go full time on this project? Because investors want to see the management team really invested and not sitting on 2 or 3 boards.
Yeah, absolutely. And that point will likely be, with a much expanded drill program that runs the full year, right? So, I mean, right now, when we've drilled, we can start drilling again whenever we want. I mean, it's a 12-month property. So that's I just want to touch on that in that, there's a lot of mining companies in BC, exploration companies, particularly up north. And one of the aspects of investing in some of the companies in BC is that there's a very short season that you can conduct work in. And you often see that reflected in the trading patterns of the stock, because you're only going to get news flow and results in July, August, September, and October before 20 feet of snow falls on the project and the helicopters can't fly the drill in anymore. Where we're located in southwestern BC, we're in a really good location from a weather and climate perspective, in that it's relatively arid. Actually, it's the extension of a desert that comes up from Washington State,
right.
And we could drill for a nominal increment in cost through the winter. So to answer your question, if we have success, then yes, very quickly will be it'll be much more of my time. Absolutely.
So thanks very much for introducing that story to us. It's new to us. We're delighted to I like showing these sort of early stage projects with people, because understanding how you start from the get-go and how you structure it. And today we've talked a lot about structuring, why that's important. And I think for investors to understand the importance of that, and I think you've done a good job of explaining that, has been fascinating to listen to. So I appreciate that. But good luck with this project, and stay in touch with us. Keep us up to date with certainly the drill results and any other data that you gather. We'd love to hear how you develop this, move this forward, certainly in Q1, Q2 next year.
Yeah, thanks very much. Will do. We'll have some results coming out at the end of the month, likely, or early into January. So we'll know if we've done it right. But I really appreciate the opportunity to explain the philosophy here, and we're trying to do things the right way, and we'll hopefully continue to prove that to the market.
Thanks very much for watching. We hope you enjoyed that, and if you did, please click the button in the corner of the screen to subscribe to our YouTube channel. You can also catch us on our website, cruxinvestor.com, and Cruxcast, our podcast series. Plus, most days you can catch us on LinkedIn and Twitter. We'd love getting your feedback, so please keep that coming, and we'll speak to you again soon.